we just did a segment about the ICC meeting with the United Nations, and the UN in the news this week saying Gaza near full-blown collapse as U.S. vetoes ceasefire call. Yes, you read that right. The United States vetoes a ceasefire resolution at the UN. The UN is at a breaking point in Gaza, its most senior official has warned, as his colleagues describe the untenable humanitarian catastrophe in the territory, with 700 people sharing a single toilet and people burning plastic to keep warm. Think about that. Burning plastic. You can die from inhaling fumes of burnt plastic. Very, very dangerous to burn plastic. One official said UN agencies were barely operational and staff were bringing their children to work so they know they are safe or can die together. Another said Gaza society was on the brink of full-blown collapse with civil order breaking down. Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, told a meeting of the Security Council in New York, "We are at a breaking point. There is a high risk of total collapse of the humanitarian system. People were desperate, fearful, and angry and were looking into the abyss," he said, urging the UN to back a Security Council resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire. Gutierrez said the eyes of the world and the eyes of history are watching. But late on Friday afternoon, the United States vetoed the resolution calling for a ceasefire. 13 countries on the 15-member council supported the motion, with the UK abstaining. We have video. This is from the Guardian as well. They edited this. Obviously, this is UN footage, but here we go. Here's a little taste of how things went down.
Contra.
So in contra means, are you against the ceasefire? That's the U.S. Only guy raising his hand from the United States.
Abstenciones.
Absence mean basically I vote present. The UK raises his hand there. One vote.
The people of Gaza are looking into the abyss. The international community must do everything possible to end their ordeal. The eyes of the world and the eyes of history are watching.
We do not support calls for an immediate ceasefire. This would only plant the seeds for the next war, because Hamas has no desire to see a durable peace.
This war is part of the assault to end the Palestinian people as a nation and to destroy the question of Palestine. If you do not share this objective, you must stand against the war.
Following the atrocities of October 7th, Israel committed itself to the elimination of Hamas's capabilities for the sole reason of ensuring that such horrors could never be repeated again. And if Hamas is not destroyed, such horrors will be repeated.
We are all aware that Israel began its military operations in response to the brutal terror attacks unleashed by Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups on 7 October. I unreservedly condemn those attacks, and I'm appalled by the reports of sexual violence. There is no possible justification for deliberately killing some 1,200 people. At the same time, the brutality perpetrated by Hamas can never justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. And while indiscriminate rocket fire by Hamas into Israel and the use of civilians as human shields are in contravention with the laws of war, such conduct does not absolve Israel on its own violations.
Okay, so there's some video from the UN. I'll read. We have a couple more cards here. After that vote, which we just saw, the United Arab Emirates, Deputy Ambassador Mohammed Abu Shahab warned that the Security Council is growing isolated and appears untethered from its mandate to ensure international peace and security. You think so? You think so? Untethered from their mandate. Be nice if they could do something soon. Philippe Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of UNRWA, United Nations Relief and Works Agency, the main UN agency in Gaza, said it was the darkest hour in the organization's history. In a letter to the President of the UN General Assembly, Dennis Francis, Lazzarini said UNRWA is, as of today, still operational in Gaza, though just barely. Our staff are still operating health centers, managing shelters, and supporting traumatized people, some carrying their dead children. We are still distributing food, even though the corridors and courtyards of our premises are too crowded to walk through. Our staff take their children to work so they know they are safe and can die together. More than 130 UNRWA employees had been killed in the past 2 months of war. 70% of staff were displaced and lacking food, water, and adequate shelter, he said. We are hanging on by our fingertips. If UNRWA collapses, humanitarian assistance in Gaza will also collapse. And your country, our country, raises their hands to veto a ceasefire resolution. They're party to all of this testimony, all of this talk. They hear all of this happening. They see all this happening. They know all of this happening. And they can still put their hand up. Nope. No ceasefire. No ceasefire. That's your country.
Yeah, it's, and this is why so many countries that are in opposition to the United States always point out this framing that the U.S. gives that the rest of the world is, full of evil antagonists, and the U.S. is on the side of the angels.
Yeah, and they're barbaric. They're uncivilized.
They're uncivilized.
There.
That is so transparently false. We are supporting a genocide, and we are the only ones on the UN Security Council that won't even call for a ceasefire. It's just, how on earth do Americans maintain this fiction that we are the good guys on the world stage? And all cultures have a variation of that idea. I don't know if there's ever been a country with such a, Jimmy Stewart-esque myth about itself. The British, I think, saw themselves as a little more sophisticated, right? It's a more realpolitik, the way they were working in the world. Like, yes, they saw themselves as superior, but I don't think in such a almost cartoonish way as the United States. We're just these good, clean-cut Americans bringing good American values to the rest of the world. And you look at what's happening in Gaza and our just unwavering support for it. And just the last... In this, Ukraine did some work, but this, I think, is tearing up the last shreds of American claims to moral authority on the world stage. And certainly Israel will never recover from this, I believe. I mean, if the Arab countries don't wind up attacking them and creating a wider war, at the very least, you're going to see non-U.S. aligned countries sanction Israel. I can't imagine that they don't.
Please clap.